In today's video we're going to recap a thriller and drama movie from the year 2007 called Joshua. The movie is about a jealous child prodigy who is also a psychopath that plans something sinister after his baby sister is born. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. The movie starts with a boy named Joshua who is playing football on a field with kids his age and is accompanied by his father, Brad. In the middle of the game, Brad gets an emergency call that his wife is giving birth to their second child, so he drags Joshua from the game to head to the hospital. In a rush, he momentarily forgets to help Joshua cross the street with him. In the hospital room, Brad and his wife, Abby, are cradling their newborn daughter. Joshua watches silently from a distance, then asks his mother how sick she is, to which she answers only slightly. Once Abby and the baby are allowed to go home, the extended family members gather at the couple's house. While Brad's parents are talking about the baby, Joshua and Ned, Abby's brother, are playing the piano together. Ned stops playing and approaches the others to join the lovely family conversation. Joshua is asked to stop playing the piano by Abby as it will disturb the baby. From their conversation, it seems that Brad and Abby are a middle-class family living in New York City. Then, Ned asks his sister if she's got the baby blues, but she says she feels much better than last time, implying that she was very depressed when Joshua was born. Meanwhile, Joshua only listens to the conversation, as nobody seems to even notice him in the room and is too preoccupied with the baby and themselves. That night in bed, Joshua tells Brad that he or Abby isn't required to love him and that he'll be fine, but Brad dismisses that thought, saying that they'll always love him as he's their child. Later, Abby hears breathing noises from the baby monitor and thinks that someone is in Lily's room, but nobody was there. As the couple looks at Lily, Joshua hides by the door. The next day, after Joshua is dropped off at school by Brad, he spends his day being a quiet and smart student in class but seems to be disinterested in sports, preferring to read books instead. Joshua seems to be fascinated by death, as he enjoys it when his history class learns about mummies, and later during dinner, he says something about people having died in this apartment and everywhere around the world. His parents, who are busy giving affection to Lily, dismisses his thought and goes back to taking care of Lily. Joshua then asks them what he was like as a child, and his parents awkwardly say that he was an energetic baby. Joshua wants to find out himself, so he goes to watch the home videos Brad recorded when he was a baby. It turns out that unlike with Lily, Abby was very emotional and irritable while taking care of baby Joshua as he could not stop crying. In one video, she even repeatedly says that she's okay, despite her expression saying otherwise. Sometime later, it's the day of Joshua's piano recital at school, and Brad and Abby meet up with the other children's parents before the show. Ned later joins the couple right before the show starts, and they watch a few mediocre students perform before Joshua walks on stage. He starts off playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is not the song he planned to play, then starts progressively adding more and more dissonant notes. The crowd and Joshua's parents are confused of what he's playing, but Ned thinks that Joshua intends to play it like this. The song becomes more and more disturbing until finally, Joshua passes out on stage and they take him back home. That night, the couple gets woken up by Lily crying, but they don't know why as they've made sure her needs were met before bed. She won't stop crying and this frustrates Abby who shouts at Brad to leave the room. Outside, Brad gets scared when he sees Joshua out of nowhere, who asks about his sister's condition. At 1 month old, Abby takes Lily to the doctor for a checkup, and also to see why she hasn't stopped crying for 5 days. The doctor says that some babies cry a lot and that it's normal, but the constant crying is reminding Abby of when Joshua was a baby and it frustrates her. When Brad comes back home one day, Abby is all upset and angry, immediately handing over a crying Lily for him to take care of. After he manages to put Lily to sleep, he comes to Joshua's room to find him packing up all his toys to donate to the poor. He also starts to cut up his doll and remove the stuffing, saying that he wants to embalm it like how the ancient Egyptians did to ensure a glorious afterlife. Brad leaves and approaches Abby in the bedroom, asking her what's wrong. He tries to lighten the situation by flirting with her to initiate sex, but she's too sad and depressed to be in the mood. A few days later, Ned comes over to their house to listen to Abby cry and complain more and more because she feels tired of taking care of the always fussy Lily. He suggests that she hire a nanny and have a day off to relax and have fun, but she doesn't think that she can let someone else handle Lily. Suddenly, Joshua comes out and asks for permission to go donate his toys outside. She lets him go out alone because he is more responsible than most 9-year-olds. Meanwhile, Brad goes to Joshua's school for a parent-teacher meeting. His teacher tells Brad that Joshua is really smart and they should consider letting him skip a grade or two. Brad then asks about why the pets in the classroom are all gone, and it turns out that a few days ago, all the pets die simultaneously. One night, Abby wakes up due to Lily's crying, but instead of calming her down, she goes out to get a cold drink from the fridge. She gets shocked by Joshua, who is standing there out of nowhere, and drops the glass, causing it to break. She goes on to talk about how she thinks ghosts are everywhere, but when Joshua steps back in fear, she tries to apologize and calm him down but accidentally steps on a piece of glass. Her foot is cut, but it seems like she doesn't feel the pain and instead enjoys it, smearing blood up to her leg. She then goes to the hospital with Brad to get the wound stitched, and goes back to Ned, who is taking care of the children for them. While Abby is recovering, Brad's mother, Hazel, stays at their home to help take care of the children, but it seems like Abby doesn't really like her taking care of Lily. As Abby pumps some breast milk, Brad helps take care of her wound and makes sure that she drinks her medicine. Suddenly, Joshua comes up and asks permission to walk their dog, and the couple agrees as long as he doesn't go too far. Meanwhile, because Brad couldn't channel his passion with Abby, when he is working, Brad starts looking up sexy women on the internet. However, his colleague suddenly comes, which makes Brad's focus disperse until he finally decides to exercise together. Despite exercising, Brad's focus still can't return, especially when he gets a call from his wife telling him that their dog had died. Immediately, Brad rushes back to their house, and when he gets there, he sees his dog lying lifeless in the kitchen. Seeing his father sad, Joshua tries to be sad too. Then, he complains to his grandmother because his father accuses him of being the culprit of their dog's death. Hazel asks Brad not to do that because she is sure Joshua wouldn't kill their dog. The next day, Hazel brings Joshua to church as she wants him to be religious. Meanwhile, Abby is home alone again, experiencing hallucinations, so she calls Brad and tells him that she sees a lot of dirt on the ceiling and various other foreign objects. Worried, Brad quickly returns home and tries to calm his wife down. It turns out that Abby does have schizophrenia, even though she had stopped experiencing the symptoms 17 years ago. However, this time, she is experiencing them again. Afterwards, Abby suddenly kisses Brad and they finally have sex again, when Joshua is still in church with Hazel. After coming home from church, Hazel tells the couple about Joshua, who has been guided to become a Christian. This is contrary to Abby, who is Jewish, so she gets upset about Hazel's decision and can't control her emotions, and insists that Joshua is not allowed to embrace Christianity. Hazel tries to talk with Brad and asks him to be more assertive with Abby because they have been married for long enough, yet they still live in an apartment, not a house. Brad understands and apologizes for what happened to his mother, and says that he will try to discuss the matter later. Later, Brad approaches Joshua, who is reading the Bible, and tells him to take a walk for a while. Joshua decides to go to the park and stays there in silence when suddenly, he is approached by a homeless man who is asking him for help. Unexpectedly, Joshua responds by saying that he would give the man $5 if he can throw a stone to his face. That night, Brad has to come home late as he needs to take care of work. Bored after putting her child to sleep, Abby accepts an offer from Joshua, who invites her to play hide and seek. Abby closes her eyes and counts while Joshua is looking for a hiding place. However, after a long while, Abby never finds Joshua's whereabouts anywhere in their home. Joshua suddenly disappeared, but only that, Lily also disappeared from her baby basket, which makes Abby even more worried. She tries to find Lily's whereabouts on the roof of their apartment to no avail until she finally calls Brad to come home. When Brad arrives, Abby is crying about how both her children have gone missing, and Brad tries to calm her down. However, when they return to the apartment, they find Joshua there with his sister. Yet still, Abby, who is already emotional, blames all of this on Joshua. Brad is getting more worried about Abby's condition, and Joshua is also starting to act out more and more. He decides to make the tough decision of leaving his job to take care of his wife, who is having difficulties in controlling her emotions. While Abby recovers, Joshua and Lily are entrusted to their grandmother. At that time, the three of them are going to a museum, and Hazel explains the history of human civilization to Joshua, who seems to enjoy it. Meanwhile, at the apartment, Brad is watching the camera footage he had set up in their house. This is where all the bad things begin to unfold, starting with their dog, which was actually poisoned by Joshua. He also figures out why Lily always cries every night, which is because she was being bothered by Joshua. Thanks to the recording, Brad is worried and immediately goes to find Joshua and Hazel, who are still at the museum. While in the museum, Hazel asks Joshua to look after Lily for a while, and Joshua obliges. It turns out that Joshua is trying to harm his sister by trying to pushing her down the stairs. Luckily, Hazel finds them first and separates Joshua from Lily. Not long after that, Brad arrives at the museum. While Brad is holding Lily, he witnesses something horrible as Hazel is pushed down by Joshua from above until she dies. This is where Brad decides to take action and sets more boundaries with Joshua. He makes a special key in Lily's room so that Joshua can't enter carelessly. Wanting to know for sure what Joshua is going through, Brad calls a psychiatrist to check Joshua out. It turns out that Joshua is smart. He describes how his father tortures him cruelly and manages to make it seem like he is abused. The psychiatrist believes Joshua's story, so he scolds Brad for behaving like that. Brad is getting more and more stressed about his son's behavior, so one day when Joshua is about to go to school, Brad tells him that he will be transferred to a school abroad that night. Not wanting to be transferred, Joshua runs away in tears. Joshua decides to change his behavior to be a good kid, even becoming more fond of Lily as he carries her and gives her milk in the morning. Because of the change, Brad invites Joshua to go with him to the park. However, Joshua starts to misbehave and not follow Brad's instructions again, even saying things that makes Brad lose his temper and starts to beat Joshua up right in front of a lot of people. Thus, Brad gets arrested by the police and they plan to remove Joshua from his family and put him into the care of Child Protective Services and will be transferred into a children's shelter. The movie ends with Joshua singing a song that he had composed about his parents who had never loved him to Ned, before their house is about to be confiscated. That is the end of the recap. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video.